Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jerry Sansing with another edition of South Texas News and Reviews. This is March the 9th, 2019. The air times for this show on Channel 10 Public Access on Grande, and then we have different stations on the other public access channels. You can look those up. But the air times are Tuesday at 9 p.m. and then again Wednesday at 9 p.m. You can go into YouTube with Jerry, J-E-R-R-Y, Sansing, and look up the YouTube versions of these. I put them on YouTube. Anyway, I'm going to go to Del Mar College and get some excerpts from the last board meeting that they had, the Del Mar College Board of Regents meeting on March the 5th. It's very enlightening, and I'm going to show you how you taxpayers are treated and some of the fallacies and what you've been told about how secure we are with building new campuses and so forth, and then I'll discuss the city and their reluctance to let the public know what's going on in the different halls down there and different meetings, and certainly we've had some real problems, and I've got real problems with Public Information Act requests with Del Mar College. So I'm going to put something up here for you to look at right quick, and then I'm going to take off and load the Board of Regents meetings clips on the air for you. I'll be right back. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back from my filming of other things. This is a continuation of the March the 10th, or I guess it's March 9th when I started recording this. Put some stuff on there from board meetings at Del Mar College and other things. But I'm back now. This is South Texas News and Reviews. And I gave you the air times in the beginning of this, so I won't rehash that. I did show you a rather graphic picture of how the taxpayers are treated around here. Taxpayers always get, wind up holding the bag for all these messes that these individuals make around here, our illustrious elected officials. Not all of them, folks. We've got some fine people, but, just basically, you can, I can ascertain within several minutes who's proper and who's not. We got Jiminy Cricket giving Pinocchio hell about lying, and his nose is growing. So I'd like to see you join me up here with Jiminy Cricket. I know we're little bitty people, but and give these politicians a what for around here. Now I'm very, very interested in political transparency and government transparency and many aspects that go with that. I've written I don't know how many Public Information Act requests for various things. I do have my no Del Mar bonds on here. I'm going to talk about the mess we're in there at Del Mar with taxes going up and probably not having enough money to build that Southside campus and complete what we've got. I call Del Mar College DMC. It's not Del Mar, it's Defrayed Maintenance College. I go all over campus. I teach over there full time, and I see item after item that has not been fixed. Maintenance. The maintenance people are minimum crew, folks, and they work their backsides off over there, the vast majority of them, and they get no help at all, and they get no accolades. In fact, if you're on that crew over there, you can have a supervisor tell one of your family members, without you knowing it, that you, as a worker at Del Mar College, are essentially worthless. You're not doing your job. You're on the phone all the time, and you're slacking off. And I don't think that you need to be telling the family members, the younger family members of a worker over there, things like that. And then when you do want to go over and try to get some justice for things like that, I think that's despicable. It's totally out of line. But that's just the way this administration's gone since it's been bloated out of proportion over there. They bully people. They go and start hassling you around and badgering you and bullying you and hoping that you'll just fold up and go home, that you won't fight them. It's worked in a couple of cases that I know of, and it's cost the college a whole bunch of money, you taxpayers out there, when people do defend themselves. And there's still a lawsuit going on that I'd rather not talk about right now that's been ongoing for at least 6 years. And there's a whole lot of money being spent, folks, to fight that one, and appeal it and appeal it and appeal it, and so forth and so on. And it's a tragedy. And it's just because they wanted to bully somebody. You know, and I'll admit it, I was asked one time, or I did ask to have my dismissal hearing on a certain date. And the letter I got back from my vice president of instruction at that time was, Dr. Sansing, we can fire you, but you cannot request to be fired. Now, can you tell me what that means? Somebody out there, Lord help us all. But anyway, they know I'm going to come back with a vengeance. As long as I'm not over there breaking the law or hassling people, then you know, I don't think that I need to be. I don't need to be badgered, bullied, or whatever. So I just wait for the day. Okay? I know a lot of people that have been, folks, and it's a tragedy. But that's just the way it happens when you bloat an administration beyond control, and nobody's paying any attention. And then the Human Resources Department doesn't give a damn. And you know, they really don't. They're not going to do anything about one person that tries to bully somebody else over there and gets out of line. They just kind of blow it off, you know, like, go away, just leave us alone. We got better fish to fry over here. But anyway, I'm very proud of our esteemed governor. I know that makes a lot of people mad in this political mess that we're all in. You know, you've got to take sides, or you're not an American anymore. Okay, and it makes me want to throw up when I hear all these people saying, "Well, he's got to be a bad person because he belongs to this political party, or he has a bent towards another political outcome," and so forth and so on. It's very, very detrimental to this country and you know, the citizens thereof, and it makes me, I just don't turn the TV on anymore. I don't want to listen to all that garbage. But I am proud of Governor Abbott for upholding the Texas Open Meetings Act and the Texas Public Information Acts and so forth and so on. He's got, you know, we've got vast problems around here, okay? And here's the court's decision defies reason. Grade school math can solve the vagueness. Here, we all know you. Problem: a government body wants to meet outside the prying eyes of the public. It needs less than a quorum to do that. If there are 9 members, now many constituents or constitute less than a quorum. Okay, the meetings. You know, they talk to each other on the telephone and so forth. Now, I don't know how much of that goes on at the city or at Del Mar. I know it's happened at Del Mar. I know people that are on that board of regents that would not do that. It's called a walking quorum. So I'm not talking about all of our elected officials, folks, but we have just enough of them over there that make things, you know, just unbearable. I've written many a Public Information Act request, and all I get is a letter back stating that this high-priced attorney firm out of Austin has written the Attorney General for an opinion to see if I can get that information or not. And then they quote all kinds of laws and so forth and so on. And the bills for that are horrendous. We tried to get that lately, and Del Mar College filed a lawsuit against the Attorney General's office to withhold information that I had asked for. And the last time I saw a bill for that, and it was courtesy of a Public Information Act request by another person other than me, but the charges when you know, for court costs and so forth, attorney's fees and stuff for Del Mar College to sue the Attorney General's office and try to withhold that information, and I still haven't got the information, okay? And I looked it up, and as of 4 or 5 days ago, I think it's finally been resolved. Maybe I'll hear something before they start shoveling dirt in my face. But you know, you never can tell. But it was $56,000 was the last count I had, and they had appealed it after the Attorney General said give it to him. So I hate to cost people that kind of money, but I'm sure glad that Governor Abbott is aware of what's going on down here, and I think he's getting real weary of that. Okay, probably a bit perturbed. So I'm going to go ahead and send him a nice letter and tell him how much I appreciate this. But this editorial came out on the 3rd of March. What Abbott did in defense of right to open government. Okay, and there are rules and regulations for public meetings being wide open to the public and the public knowing what's going on. Okay, so I don't know what to tell you, but that's the way it is. Now we've also got a big problem not only with Del Mar College covering stuff up, and I'll just tell the saga of the Manhattan Alley Cat again. Many years ago, when I was on a postdoctoral position, I went to present a scientific paper at one of the national meetings, and I can't remember whether it was Biochem Society or the American Society for Microbiology. It was one of those two in Manhattan. So they gave us one afternoon off, and I went over to Broadway and saw a show at the time, which was one of the hottest ones going at that time. It was called Pippin. And on the way back to my hotel room, I was going to jaywalk. I shouldn't have done that, but there were two sets of buildings when the alleyways go back from one street to the other, and the buildings face the streets on the other side. So I went halfway down the block where the alley dumped out in between the two sets of buildings, and I was standing there waiting for the traffic to clear, and I heard this scraping sound behind me, and I looked around, and there was this scruffy old alley cat that had taken and made a mess on the sidewalk, and his poor thing, he was a little scraggly guy, he was trying to scrape up enough dust to cover up the mess he made, okay, which was an impossible task because there's nothing to cover it up with. So when I see these politicians and these political entities, you know, and these city governments and institutes of higher learning and so forth making messes, they usually don't have enough wherewithal to cover stuff up. They're a bunch of Manhattan alley cats, unfortunately. Now we did have, and I've just told you that Del Mar College is famous for not divulging information. Now I'm going to start at the beginning, and I'll come back to one Mr. Nick Jimenez here. We've had many articles written here recently about the fact that Corpus Christi, the city of, contracted a headhunter, they call them, okay, to a person or a company that goes out and tries to find employees by taking in their resumes and screening those and then presenting names to the finalists that, as far as they're concerned, to the city of Corpus Christi in this case. Okay? Now, what happened was there were some people that wanted to find out who these folks were that had been going through this system and who the finalists were that were going to be turned over to Corpus Christi, so that at the board meetings, or the city council meetings, I guess it's soon, they're going to discuss those candidates in closed session and have figure out who they're going to narrow the field down to. Well, the city, through the mayor, Mr. McComb, and I'm sure through Mr. Miles Risley, or Risley, however he pronounces his name, our esteemed, brilliant city attorney, they said that you can't get that information. It's not, the public does not deserve to have that, even under Public Information Act, okay, and the Open Meetings Act. And what had happened in the contract, apparently, is the city put in the contract that they would not divulge those people and get the locating company in trouble, okay, and run people off. And they were all these lame excuses why we couldn't get that information as tax-paying citizens here, okay. So on the editorial on Wednesday, March the 6th, in the Caller Times, it says Corpus Christi signed a bad faith contract, okay, and it went through several factors here, contrary to that old saying about laws in general. The Texas Public Information Act is not made to be broken yet. Okay, broken period. And yet the city of Corpus Christi and the firm it hired to find a new city manager made a contract to evade the long arm of the law. So this was an editorial, and I don't know, it didn't specify which person with the Caller-Times did this. I guess it was a collective. And then it goes on, okay? Why candidates' privacy isn't your problem, okay? The common retort to this is revealing the candidates invades their privacy and can put them at risk with their current employers. Indeed, it's what Mayor Joe McComb tried to sell. Don't buy it. So this was a very, sharp barb, folks, at the city mayor and the city councilman. And then it said word games in the contract. And they went on about that. The contract is weighed down with wording about the search information being the property of the search firm and not the city. Now, we're paying for that through the city taxes, folks, okay? So I think the Caller-Times editorial staff had a real good, reason to write this. And then it says here it's a statewide problem, and it is. I've run into that with Del Mar College. I run into it with the city when I was looking for information from them. They missed the deadlines and, apologized profusely and so forth and so on and said, oops, we didn't mean to do that, and I'm supposed to be all forgiving, yet they don't think, that I've got any rights at all as a taxpayer to this city. And the same thing with Del Mar College. So that was a good one there. Corpus Christi signed a bad faith contract. Then the next day, city's disclosure versus public right. Tom Whitehurst Jr., who was I think he's the head of the editorial board and so forth and so on. He's one of the higher uppity mucks up over there with the Caller-Times, wrote City's Disclosure versus Public Right. And it shows a picture of two of the members plus the mayor at one of the meetings. And then he says the Corpus Christi City Council disclosed 6 candidates for city manager Wednesday in response to open records request and editorial criticism by the Caller-Times. This disclosure is important to Corpus Christi residents and has wider implications for all of Texas. Okay? Why is this important? Also, we did learn, what did we learn about these 6? ? Okay? First, why it's important, and it goes through that, and it divulges that and says that Margie Rose resigned May 2018. Here we are sneaking up on May again, and we don't have a city manager. Okay, and then there's some talk about the current interim city council person. The city manager has applied for this, and there may be some problems with that, and so forth and so on. If you go down and listen to our city attorney and some of these city council people and so forth, it'll drive you up a wall, folks. You're going, what? You got to be kidding me. Citizens don't have any rights in this town. The only right we have is to pay an exorbitant fee for all this garbage that they get us into. Okay? Now, here's what really burned me up, and I put this on the other show. I'm going to go ahead and read it again. After it, why is this important? And it says that it is. Okay? And this is from Tom Whitehurst, and he's the spokesperson in this case for the Caller-Times. He says, how diverse is this group? Now we get into the racial implications and gender and everything else under the sun, which I wish we could keep the hell out of our daily lives these days. Okay? We know we've got problems in this country with that. We always have those, and I'm sure we always will. But when you keep, trying to lance that boil, then, you're going to run into problems. But this is what I find to be objectionable to me. Now, I grew up in a military family, folks. I did not know about color all of my life. Okay, I did not know about gender. We had all types of people that were in the service, men, women, and anything else under the sun. And we had all kinds of nationalities and so forth and so on, all ages, and it was just a very diverse group. And if you did not do your job, somebody else was going to suffer for that. So you didn't worry about race and gender and so forth when I was growing up at that stage. And I learned to respect everyone as a human being, not because of what they claimed to be, okay, or what their skin color was. Okay, how diverse is this group? All 6 are men. Once Harry E. Black, former city manager of Cincinnati, Ohio, is a person of color. None has a Hispanic surname. Okay? Does it seem odd that the search turned up no women when at least half the world population is female? Or that there are no Hispanics under consideration for a highly desirable position in a part of the country that is overwhelmingly Hispanic? It doesn't mean these 6 aren't the best available, but it leaves the search itself open to questions about how much effort was made to find a diverse pool of candidates. Okay? Now, this is the one that really burned me up. If being a longtime resident of Canada counts as diversity, there's Simon C. Farbrother, who is Canadian, who is one of the 6, who since 1988 has worked for 4 cities in the Great White North. And great is capitalized, white is capitalized, and north. And I almost lost my teeth when I read that one. You know, that's the last thing I think we need in Corpus Christi, Texas, is to throw that into the fray, Mr. Whitehurst. I really do. You know, I agree with you that that whole process was bogus. It shouldn't have happened that way. It's a tragedy, and so forth and so on, but we don't need to put race and gender and everything else under the sun that's being, you know, you can't turn on TV anymore without everybody calling everybody else a racist and a bigot and a thief and a scoundrel. It's just enough to make you want to vomit, okay? But we don't need it in the newspaper as far as I'm concerned, okay? Then on the 7th, that was on the 7th, in the same paper, it says top city manager hopefuls emerge. What we know about the list of candidates. So it says that the council finally went ahead and had to release those, and they said that the 6 people that they listed here had agreed with the company, the hiring company, or the search company, to have their names put into the public. Okay, so I don't need to read the 6 that are in here. And you know, I just don't think that's necessary at this stage of the game. But what we know about the list of candidates, it says who they are, where they're presently employed, so forth and so on, and it goes on down, and it says, I think it's very important that we were able to give the names of the group of people that we were interested in for the position, she said. And let's see, who was this? This was Paulette Guajardo, at large city council person, okay? You know this is the people's city manager, not just council city manager. Would have liked for it to come out sooner, because as a constituent, I think that I would have wanted to know. Personally, yes, I would have liked for all the names to have been able to become public when they were submitted, she said. Okay? So that's one of the council members that sees a flaw in that. Okay? Now, back on the 3rd, this started it off with Nick Jimenez, pardon me, who's a guest columnist for 40 years. I guess he was with the Caller Times. Still is. But he had made some observations. Courthouse dilemma presents opportunity. It says, count me among those who don't see an argument for demolishing the courthouse. Okay? Now this he got into the courthouse tearing down, and then he's always, you know, saying this, that, and the other about how he knows so much more than anybody else around town for this, that, and the other. He's a good writer, but you know, it gets a little bit weird at times. But then he went back the next week on the 10th. These are Sunday paper. Usually they're in the Sunday paper. And he said political transparency should be the norm. The 3 applicants to a vacancy on the Del Mar College Board of Regents this week underwent questioning in an open meeting that was being live streamed, as transparent a process as there could be. How different that selection process was compared to the scenario that unfolded at City Hall. He's talking about the city manager's stuff. how different that was. In fact, from the process used to select the most recent Port of Corpus Christi commissioner. Okay? All right? That, I guess he equated with a little bit of the city. Okay? These two positions, Delmar Regent and the Port Commissioner, are key positions in the city's leadership structure. And these posts were filled by a process with a level of transparency that inspires confidence that at least their respective local governments get it about public information. Over at City Hall, maybe not so much. And then he goes on. But he is sitting here bragging about Delmar College and their transparency. And I have just provided you with information that Delmar College is filled with bullies over there. As a employer for almost 30 years, in August it'll be 30 years that I've been here. I can't believe that I've done it that long and taught at Delmar College, served on a lot of committees. I've tried to be a decent citizen and do the right thing for my fellow citizens and my students and so forth, and my fellow faculty members and employees at Delmar College. But it's real tough once you have a bloated administration that wants to go out and just bully people. Then we had people that came into the system, okay, and I have been told that I cannot talk to an elected Board of Regents member at Delmar College. I have to take any conversations or information that I may have straight through the president's office. Okay? Now, how questionable is that? So as a taxpayer and an employee, I have no right to contact my elected officials, aka the Delmar College Board of Regents members. That's a directive from above. Okay? And then I have told you time and time again, I've asked for information through Public Information Act, and we spend a bunch of money, asking this Attorney General to make a decision. Then the one time that the Attorney General did say give it to the man, then they balked and they sued the Attorney General saying he didn't know what he was doing and they wanted that information withheld. And $56,000 later, here we are, okay? And then, like I say, we can't get things fixed over there. DMC is not Delmar College, it's Defrayed Maintenance College, and I'm just getting tired of it, okay? Electrical panels are shot, elevators don't work, bathroom, the toilets run water consistently, and you think they'd send anybody over there? We've got one plumber, I think, for all the campuses, both campuses, East, West, and I'm sure Northwest too. And now they're going to go over to Alice and open up classes over there, these dual credit things, and Alice, and all over the place. It's just incredible, folks. Okay, and then as you will see, there's been massive discussions about raising tuition to cover the cost of that boondoggle called the South Campus, and that's the reason I dug this thing out of the drawer. I know it's kind of wrinkled up, but I've got that, and then I've dug this out. If you want to see how adamant I was about not needing the Southside Campus, there it is. My name's right down there at the bottom, and it says paid for by Sansing et al., and it gives my home address in Corpus Christi, Texas. Okay. And now we're not going to be able to pay for it, it doesn't look like, and unless we go way up on tuition and then start gouging you fine folks for more tax money. And bless the governor's heart, at least he's shutting some of that mess down with that boondoggle. Okay? And just, the egos with these elected officials, not all of them, but a majority of them is just gone crazy, And then I've asked to go back to a system where I have the right as a faculty member to evaluate the administration. That's not in the offing. We used to be able to do that, but I'm evaluated all the time. I've got students that evaluate me, and Delmar College pays attention to it. If you get, if a student gets their nose out of the joint, then, the administration gives them full reign to go over there and start complaining. They give them the right to hassle me and threaten me in public. And then they go on a witch hunt against me, trying to prove that I was the culprit in some of that mess. Then they get all over you as a math professor, and they run you off. That cost the taxpayers about, I think, $250,000. They got uppity with the person that was running the HR over there, Human Resources. I think she walked away with a little over $400,000. And then they've had other people that have gone, okay, several of them, and now we've got a lawsuit where, you know, the jury's already awarded close to $700,000 plus legal fees and so forth, and Del Mar College is dragging their feet on that one too. And then we had 3 students that went after a fantastic professor over there, nursing professor, and she finally settled and gave up. And you know, I mean, it's just bullying. And then I know that there's several other people now that are in the same boat. I get calls from those people, folks, and I don't mind telling them what to do. And I'm just waiting for mine to come down the pike. Okay? But this administrative bloat we've got, and you know, the Human Resources Department over there just doesn't give a rip about. You know, yeah, bullying's just fine with us as long as it's an administrator bullying a faculty member, or, you know, a supervisor over there bullying a subordinate, and so forth and so on. I could give you a list of a whole lot of stuff that's going on over there that just, you know, make you want to sit down and cry. And they go on there and say, oh, we're going to do such a good job. We're going to put this campus out here, and we're going to get 15 to 20,000 students when we don't have room. Or we've got more than enough room as it sits right now. We've got a big building projects going on East End. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this may be a little bit more graphic than you'd like to be able to realize, but the taxpayers always in this town, along with the all the public tax entities and so forth and so on, Del Mar, the city, the CSA ISD and all, we get you know, left holding the bag at all times, and I think this exemplifies what we get around here most of the time from our elected officials. Anyway, I'll be right back.
Actually, because so much of what happens at the legislature does revolve around funding, I'm going to ask Vice President Raul Garcia to join me, because this is really kind of where the rubber meets the road for us. We are tracking somewhere between 450 and 500 bills already. But because things kind of got a slow start this legislative session, only about half of those have even been referred to a committee, and so nothing has moved forward. So rather than bring you a long list of bills, we'll just keep an eye on those as the session goes forward, and we'll make sure that when something comes up that you must be alerted to, that you know what's going on with that. The piece that is probably the most of most concern would be House Bill and Senate Bill 2, and that has to do with adjusting the percentage of property taxes that taxing entities, with the exception of independent school districts, are allowed to increase their tax bite out of the annual budget, if you will. It used to be that if you went over 7.99% increase from one year to the next, there was the potential for taxpayers to come back and implement a rollback. That would make it very problematic for Mr. Garcia and his team to put a budget together to get an annual budget going in the few weeks that they have in July and August to be able to be operational by the 1st of September. But that would have been a proactive after the fact. The way these two bills are structured, if the college were to set a tax rate more than 2.5% above the current rate, then that would take a taxpayer vote, a proactive taxpayer vote, for that to go into effect. That does, in a large degree, limit what Mr. Garcia will have the opportunity to bring to you as a proposal for the tax rate for the next year, of about a third of the amount of leeway right now that the administration currently has to propose for your consideration. And so I really would like to focus what I have to report today on what that would mean to the budget, and to ask Mr. Garcia to go into that portion of it in more detail.
Thank you. So let's take a deeper dive on the financial implication of the reform on our local tax revenue. Now, the slide here, I purposely put that out there to demonstrate how much of the resource local tax brings to the college. And I'm not too sure why that skipped. Okay, there we go. So local tax revenue represents 54%, a little bit over 54% of the 2018-2019 budget. A big piece of our revenue dollars. The second piece is student tuition and fees. We bring in about close to 24.8 million, a little bit over close to 25%. So just between those two pieces alone, that represents 75% of our total revenue dollars. Okay, so let's take another look as to what that means and the implications, if any, to student tuition if and when these changes occur. Okay. All right. The reform makes reference to changes to property tax funding methodology that reduces the current rollback rate of 8% above the effective rate. There are ongoing discussions at the state around a reduced rate ranging from 2.5% to as much as 5% above the effective rate. So I have three possible scenarios on the financial implications to the college. I also want to mention that terms are also changing in this legislative body of work. The common term effective rate will be replaced with no new revenue rate, which is an interesting term, right? A change going from 8% to the 2.5% will reduce revenues by approximately $2.6 million. Second scenario, a change from 8% to 4% will reduce revenues by $1.9 million. Using fiscal year 2019 as a reference point, the college assessed a 5.4% above the effective rate. This allowed the college to fund $700,000 in salary increases and benefits, and another $1.5 million for operating costs that includes new program initiatives, campus police initiatives, and insurance. So pretty tight budget here, what we're talking about. Third scenario, a change from 8% to 5% will reduce revenues by $1.4 million. Using fiscal year 2019 as a reference point once again, the college would have reduced operating costs by approximately $190,000. Again, trying to retract. The question now becomes, what are you adjusting for? Salary increases or your operating costs? Tough questions to answer.
And these are based on effective tax rate, not just our stated tax rate,
Right.
correct?
Mhm.
Okay,
That is correct.
so the cap is anything, the increased valuations times whatever our rate is. So we could hold steady on our rate, but still bump up against that cap because of the appraisal values.
That's what I'm seeing so
Right.
far.
Okay.
Did I get a question?
No, that's all right.
Are the legislatures pretty well stuck on the 2.5% or the?
I don't believe so. There have been a lot of conversations. Dr. Escamilla has actually been to Austin and testified before the Higher Education Committee. A number of us will be up there over the next couple of days talking to different individuals, elected officials, about different scenarios and what they would mean. There's significant conversation, and I think it would be too early to try to project where we'd really land, but there certainly are a number of indications that 2.5 would be the absolute lowest that it would be. So
Earlier in
we're
the
hoping
session, there was some talk about grouping us with the K through 12. Did that
I
go
think
away?
we've pretty much been given the word that carving out community colleges and putting us in the category with independent school districts, meaning that this particular bill would not apply to us, is a non-starter.
It's applying to everyone.
It
Correct.
It would. It does not include independent school districts.
Okay.
It's cities, counties, and community colleges at this point. I guess hospital districts too, I'm not sure, but.
So I also want to share other relevant financial data points with you. Over the last 10 years, the college has come close to the 8% rate above the effective rate, and that is in fiscal years 2014 and 2015. This was in response to the college experiencing a $3.3 million reduction in state appropriation funding in fiscal years 2009 through 2014. So this is just talk about what is it that we need to keep the wheel turning. But what happens, the question now becomes, what happens when we face financial stress in the markets and the state is having to peel back or cut down some of their operating costs? What does the impact mean to us? Okay. Another data point, the average rate above the effective rate is 4.5% over the last 5 years and 3.6% over the last 10 years. The takeaway, if anything, from this slide is, for every 1% change in the rate, we're looking at a $472,000 evaluation not evaluation, but on revenue dollars to the college. Food for thought. So, in our next slide, I'm going to go over the possibility of the implications to the tuition rate scenarios addressing these specific reduced values that we just went over. The 2.6 million, the 1.9 million, and the 1.4 million. Okay. Major implications, right?
That's where you want to be, right?
As indicated before, changes to the tuition and fee rate is one possible solution to address the reduced local tax revenue. A tuition fee increase of $15 per semester credit hour is needed to compensate for the $2.6 million reduction in local tax revenue. This is based on the 2.5 rate above the effective rate. This translates to an increase to the student's annual cost of attendance of $446. Next one. A tuition fee increase of $11 per semester credit hour is needed to compensate for the $1.9 million reduction in local tax revenue based on a 4% rate above the effective rate. This again translates to an annual cost to our students of $324. Last item, a tuition fee increase of $8 per semester credit hour is needed to recover from a $1.4 million reduction in local tax revenue based on a 5% rate above the effective rate. The student annual cost of attendance in this scenario is $243. Based on the college's understanding, the legislative changes will go into effect January 1st of 2021 with a financial impact to our fiscal year ending August 2022. So we have 2 years to prepare ourselves and figure out how to balance all our resources. Okay. Mr. President, Madam Chair, and members of the region, this concludes my financial section of the report.
How difficult is it, or could you provide, maybe through Natalie in our weekly update, the 5-year or last 10 years of effective tax rate? I know you gave us the average.
Yeah.
But if you could show us what that looks like over the last 10 years,
Sure.
that would be, I think, useful information.
Absolutely.
Because
Sure.
I think we can talk about, because through the budget adoption process, what those initiatives and some of our strategic initiatives have been over the last several years. But to show what our effective tax rate has been, I think would be very helpful for us.
I'll grab that information.
Dr. Escamilla, I think if he were here, would also share with you that there is significant work being done on the other side of the equation, which would be the regular state appropriations, not the tax rate. And we do feel like that there is good news to report, nothing concrete yet, but that the reimbursement for the education we've already delivered, that particular rate, which has not been fully funded for a number of years, looks like we have the potential for that to be much closer to actually reimbursing us for what the state has told us would be the reimbursement rate for the education we've already delivered. So there's some good news on the horizon. It's I think too early to announce anything concrete because nothing's safe until the end of the legislative session and all of the signatures are coming. But do know that the team that's working for you, particularly Dr. Escamilla, who I think has been in Austin every week, practically since the session started at least once and for some period of time, is working very diligently with the Texas Association of Community Colleges to make as much ground up as we can in the event that any of these scenarios go into place.
What are we hearing about coming off of the 2.5? There's varying reports on whether or not they're willing to go to 4 or 5. Do you have an indication of?
Nothing concrete. There's a number of different legislators that we are talking with are saying yes, there's an appetite for going to 4 or 4.5, but whether that's the same notion that's just being passed around to a number of different offices, or whether there really is enough legislators who are kind of in sync with that idea to see it happen. I wouldn't want to be the one to make that prediction, but there certainly is a lot of talk about it, and I think that there are some folks, some of our elected officials in key offices who are beginning to hear exactly what you're hearing, what it would mean to the affordability for our students and to the ability for us to continue offering the wonderful programs we have and growing some of those new programs if that revenue option is not available.
And I think it's also framed around the Consumer Price Index as a reference point for inflation, which I think has averaged about 1.9, almost 2%. For the last 10 years. So, this 2.5 is kind of nice, but it's barely enough to keep up with inflation. So I think that's part of the framing of the state, is my understanding.
One last question, then I know we have a couple of other regions who have questions. My understanding is that new property tax increases are not included in this.
At this point, the way I understand the legislation, if it stays like it is, new property growth would not be subjected to this.
Okay. Mr. Bennett?
Mr. Garcia,
Yes, sir.
I've been expecting the next 4 years to be pretty tight with an 8% increase because we've got new buildings coming on and we've got a new campus coming on. So I thought it was going to be tight at 8%. At 2.5%, over a 4-year period, the cumulative effect will be a negative $20.8 million that we won't be able to get under the 8%. At 4%, it'll be $15 million. That's going to be extremely tight, or more than tight. It was tight at 8%.
Well, I think if I go back to my slide, let's double check here. I think I made reference that in reality we've actually averaged 4.5 in the last 5 years and 3.6 over the last 10
But we didn't have new buildings coming online and we didn't have a new campus coming online.
Yeah, so the new buildings, with respect to the finance component, that is a different...
I'm looking at the variable cost.
Right. So you're talking about the direct salary...
Salaries, electricity, clean,
Operations.
all the variable costs that are going to be there.
So there will be overhead. There will be some challenges, without a doubt, ahead of us. In terms of getting a $28.8 million tapping into the reserves, if that's what we're referring to, I would have to take a closer look to validate that. But I would say, the one potential strategy is to leverage our current resources as they exist today while the new campus ramps up the enrollment so that it can keep up tuition as well as state appropriations to continue to fund itself. There is a transition period that it may be costly, but hopefully in the long run, to your point, 10, 15 years out, our enrollment will grow enough to sustain the operations of that college. That's the vision.
My immediate concern is the next 4 years. I don't know how you're going to make that budget.
It's going to be a challenge, without a doubt. I would say let's leverage our current existing resources today until we can get that fully ramped up. But good news is nothing has been finalized. The state has continued to undergo discussions, and hopefully it'll be above 2.5%, hoping 4.5. So that'll only cut our challenges in half.
But to state Mr. Bennett's concern in another way, I think that his continued, I think the rest of the board would agree, his continued ask to look at those 3 or 5 year financial projections and to make sure that we understand what's coming down the pike is critical. And so when we have those budget discussions to understand the scenarios, we won't have a signed bill until sometime in May or early June. But we need to be preparing those scenarios for those budget discussions and have a really...
I agree, and financial surprises are normally never good, so we'd like to avoid any financial surprise.
Yes, I agree. I think we've learned that back in fiscal year 2010, 2013, when we lost $3.3 million from the state, and we fared very well, I think.
The surprise I'll take is 5 point.
It's still going to be
5%.
tight. At 5 points, it'll still be tight.
Very good, sir.
Other questions?
I heard you talk about salaries, that's for the teachers, and then operations.
Yes, sir.
And it seems like they both go hand in hand, you know, it's like you
Not taking any action today. There's no public comment because there won't be an action item associated with this item. I am going to move into general public comments. So it appears as if we have someone who would like to make general public comment. Thank you, Mr. Jack Gordy. Coming up for general public comment.
Yes, my name is Jack Gordy, and I live at 4118 Bray Drive. And I'm here, he's passing out the papers there for you. I'm here about the lawsuit that the Del Mar College filed against the Attorney General. All because Del Mar did not like what the Attorney General said. The Attorney, and from what I'm gathering, it's a disrespect and disrespecting the Texas Attorney General. They filed a lawsuit that was unnecessary, unethical, and uncalled for. There was no reason for that lawsuit. The lawsuit cost us $56,043 so far. They had the original lawsuit, they had the first appeal, they lost the lawsuit, they lost the appeal, they lost the second appeal. Now, and I guess it may be still pending, is the third appeal for a lawsuit that's unnecessary, all because Del Mar don't want to release some information that was not personal, not confidential, and the Attorney General said release it. Now, to me, that just don't make no sense. And it was 54 phone calls regarding that lawsuit, 54. calls to the attorney in Austin. One call, and you'll see it on your second page there. One call, phone call now, this is a phone conversation, lasted 4.1 hours, and the phone conversation alone was $1,722 just to talk on the phone. Now, to me, that's a little bit ridiculous. Those 7 phone calls that I listed are questionable. That, to me, is a waste of taxpayers' money. And there's no other way to say it. It's a waste of taxpayers' money. Because I said there's no reason for the lawsuit in the first place. And I've mentioned before, this Board of Regents needs to start doing what you were elected to do and make sure that Del Mar don't waste our money, because that is a waste of money. And like I said, it's very, very disrespectful to the Attorney General. If you look at the answer that, I don't know how many of you asked for the answer from the Attorney General when they turned in the request about the public information. And like he said in that request, in that answer, it's not confidential, it's not personal, release it. You need to be asking why Del Mar doesn't want to release it. All of you pay taxes, so it's wasting your tax money too. And that's not the only waste there is. It's wasting, wasting, wasting.
Thank you, Mr. Gordy.
Chair,
Yes.
you can't address it because it's public comments, but I will say that a lot of what is in this document is just incorrect, and I'd be happy to sit down with Mr. Gordy and try to explain it to him.
Happy
Anytime.
Information from Del Mar.
Yeah, it's not correct, and you can see that.
Thank you. Mr. Gordy, at some future point in time, either today or in the next couple of days, you're welcome to sit down with Mr. Rivera and have a conversation.
Information from Del Mar.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
I won't trust him, and if you trust him, you should quit.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else would like to make general public comment?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Buddy Venters Business Building. It was named after one of the former presidents, Mr. Venters. It's my understanding they've got some electrical panel problems over there and other things. That's where the IT department, the informational technology and all is housed. And, you know, I hear some horror tales about what's going on over there, and I guess we're not going to fix the electrical panels in that building until we get the new Southside campus built. That was the word that I got. And then I'm going to swing around to some new building over here. You can see the new buildings going up. If you look down the skyline here, you can see that there are 4 great big huge buildings starting way over there on the right. That's the low building is the administrative building. And then we've got all this new construction where the blue is. They're putting up the bricks. And then we already had an expansion of the art building over there where you see the black panels and so forth and so on. So we're building, 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 building. And then I'm going to swing around here to the library. I understand they've got some huge problems over there also that are not going to be addressed until after we get the new Southside campus built, or at least the first of 4 phases of that. And then I teach in this building as well as the one that I'm in. That's the Solomon Coles classroom building. And if you go in there for the last at least week, maybe 2 weeks, one of the 2 elevators is out. I've got 60 students per class. There are hundreds of them that are in there. It's not fully utilized all the time. We're down to 35% utilization according to Del Mar College numbers themselves. Here on the East Campus, and below 25% I think is on West Campus, and they're putting 2 brand new buildings up over there. So this is where your tax money's going, folks. And you know, I used to have a little electric commode that would make a flushing sound. I think I'm going to try to find the battery for that. And then, you know, taxpayers are the ones that are going to be sitting here holding the bag, as I showed you earlier with that disgusting pachyderm excrement. Anyway, I'm going to go back down the other side of this massive amount of building and show you some other stuff. Okay, be right back. Well, I'm beside the one end of the Solomon Coles classroom building. There's the new fence that just went up over the spring holiday. It just started officially today. Today's the 9th of March, and then you can see there's the library that needs a lot of work on it, and then we've got all this extensive new building over here that you fine folks are paying for. And after you see the comments made at the Board of Regents meeting, we can't afford this stuff. So I don't know what we're going to do. I've been preaching don't do it for a long time. I'll show you possibly the sign I put up that said no Del Mar College bonds. This is ridiculous. This is absolute nuts. And, you know, now I hope the Board of Regents will pay attention to what some of the experts are saying about we can't afford this. Okay? We couldn't do it at the beginning. We couldn't do it in 2014 when they started this mess. This is over 100. It's just under 160 million for these buildings on East Campus, and a couple of new ones out on West. And then we've got 130 some odd thousand, almost 140 million dollars, not thousand but millions out there for a Southside campus that's on swampland. So I don't know what to tell you folks, except you need to just start raising hell. And you know, let's put that Southside campus off for several years till we really know what's going to happen. That's my personal view, and I've only been here 30 years, so I really don't know diddly about Del Mar College and how it operates. I'll be right back.